Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. Chronicles of Darkness. I've told this story before, but I will tell it again. I remember when Vampire the Requiem and the World of Darkness, New World of Darkness as it was known at the time, were first being released, and my excitement was through the roof, and I wasn't the only one. I used to shop at a gaming store in a city called Southampton. It was called Hidden Fortress. It isn't there anymore. And I remember there was so much anticipation for Vampire the Requiem that you had to pre-order. And what's more, on the day of release, the customers, we all went down to Hidden Fortress, came from our respective burgs, and there was a queue that led out of the store, and it wasn't a small store, it led out of the store, up the street, and reached the corner. Everyone was there for the same thing, to pick up a copy of the Blue Book and the Red Book, World of Darkness and Vampire the Requiem. And I remember picking up my copies and taking them to a local department store, Debenhams, which also isn't there anymore, and sitting there getting lunch, and then sitting there for the rest of the afternoon just reading and reading and reading. And by the end of it, I think I'd got through both books by the time I had to go home. And so my experience of Requiem arriving was not the same as that of a lot of other people. There were lots of people who were so, I guess, attached emotionally to Vampire the Masquerade, the old World of Darkness as it was then becoming known, that they saw Requiem as having killed the game or something like that. It was utterly ridiculous. I've heard stories of people burning their copies of Requiem when they realised it wasn't Masquerade. The idea of doing that to a book is utter stupidity to me. I don't understand I genuinely have no frame of reference for having that level of emotional investment in something where I would want to burn something out of spite, But that's not to say it didn't happen. People claim it happened. Who knows? It could just be that they still feel emotional to this day. And that's fandoms for you, I suppose. But yeah, I was never a hater of the Chronicles of Darkness as it ended up becoming known. I really enjoyed the Chronicles of Darkness. I especially enjoyed it as it started getting more bold. Requiem and Forsaken, to a degree, First Edition Awakening, still revisited some of the same wells from World of Darkness equivalents. Requiem was the worst offender for this, I guess you could say, with repeat clan names, repeat in-game descriptions of things, such as, princes, kindred, Ventru, Gangrel, etc. But as the games moved on, they became more distinct as entities. And I know the whole story behind why they made the decisions they did, and I can't really second guess it. I wasn't there. And I understand why they made the decisions they did, White Wolf of the time. But all of that to say, I've always enjoyed the Chronicles of Darkness. I've enjoyed so many of the games. There are some I like more than others. And I think that's largely the point of this video, because I was asked by someone by the name of Ugo, I assume it's Ugo, what is my favourite Chronicles of Darkness game. And, well, this one won't be a 30-minute video. I know that's what you're getting used to, but I can't spoil you, can I? Let's skip to the end briefly. The Chronicles of Darkness is not being produced right now, which is to say you can still buy the Chronicles of Darkness on Drive-Thru-RPG. You can still buy various copies in traditionally printed copies via sites like Studio 2, Indie Press Revolution, Leisure Games, Zatu. There are various games like Changing the Lost, Hunter the Vigil, that have been shipped out to regular retailers, and you can buy them. But There are no further source books being released at this time, and that is because Paradox Interactive, the license holder, is not approving any more pitches for the Chronicles of Darkness. Now, we can speculate as to why that is. That's not my job, and I'm not going to. But I can say that Onyx Path, who were the licensee for the Chronicles of Darkness, didn't let this break their stride, our stride, if you will, because immediately it gave us the almost we've been working on the Curseborn RPG. I've mentioned it in a couple of videos now for quite a while, and being able to pivot from Chronicles of Darkness to Curseborn is not a bad thing for us, because Curseborn is wholly owned by Onyx Path. Would we continue creating Chronicles of Darkness books if requested, or World of Darkness books if requested? I imagine we would definitely entertain the thought. These books are popular. But Curseborn is also fully owned by Onyx Path, and so we hope it does well, and we hope it can capture a lot of the same audiences as Chronicles of Darkness and World of Darkness, especially people who may feel disappointed that there are no further Chronicles of Darkness games on the agenda. So that's our current stance, my current stance on the Chronicles of Darkness and where they are today. But that just because a game is no longer being actively supported outside of Storyteller's Vault releases doesn't mean you can't still play it. And indeed, on my Patreon, I am currently running 2 Requiem games and 1 Changing the Lost game. So I know that these games still have audiences wanting to participate in them. And I know that I'm happy to continue running them. I will work this down from games that don't hold my interest through to the ones that do. I mean, for instance, I have never really gravitated toward Mage the Awakening, Beast the Primordial. I wouldn't say that my heart is in Deviant the Renegades, or indeed Demon the Descent. That isn't to say any of them are bad games. You know, we all have different tastes, and as I said in my Werewolf 5th Edition video, just because someone likes something or doesn't like something doesn't make it good or bad. Role-playing games, like a lot of art, is entirely subjective. It really depends on the experiences you've had. Now, I've ran all of those games. I've played in some of them. Those 4, I think I mentioned 4. And sometimes it's simply something as the subject matter just doesn't grab my regular gaming groups. Mage the Awakening, as an example, it isn't something my gaming group groks, I think, is the term that the 2000 ADers of the world like to use. Whereas something like Demon the Descent, the mechanical side of things doesn't gel with my gaming group. Our group does not mesh with Demon the Descent so well. There are lots of thematic ideas we like from it. The God Machine idea, the replacement idea, some of which I incorporate in other games like Changeling, or just World of Darkness games, or Chronicles of Darkness games, I should say. But the mechanical heft of Demon the Descent has never really sat with my gaming group, my regular one. That's not to say I wouldn't run it again for my Patreons, but probably not for my regular weekly group. And so that takes us to the sort of middle tier. The middle tier of games I would put as probably Werewolf the Forsaken, which I really enjoy. I really enjoy Werewolf the Forsaken. So I might bump it up to the upper tier already. Okay, hold Werewolf the Forsaken, because now that I'm thinking of it, and especially thinking of Chronicles of Darkness games I've worked on, Werewolf the Forsaken has a very high, very important place in my heart. So, okay, we'll come back to Werewolf. I would probably put Geist in the middle tier. I love the aesthetic of it. I love the ideas within it. And I have had a hell of a lot of fun with running it. but it isn't a game I seek to return to. Interestingly, if I were to balance it with the World of Darkness equivalent, Wraith the Oblivion, I suppose, and Orpheus more to a degree, or more accurately, if I were to look at the Dead in Curseborn as my Sin Eater analog, I would go more toward running a game of Curseborn now, naturally, because I've been working on it most recently, and probably Wraith ahead of Geist. So Geist has to sit in that mid-tier for me, I think. Also, let's think. So what does this leave us with? Promethean. I'll put Promethean in the mid-tier. For a long time, Promethean was my favourite Chronicles of Darkness game. It was really important to me, especially when I was sort of exploring the idea of humanism. And how Promethean does that incredibly well. It's maybe the most deep and involved Chronicles of Darkness game to compare to a Wraith the Oblivion, let's say, in World of Darkness. But I also know that some of my players have bounced off of it. It's a love it or hate it, a Marmite game, I think. I don't think people hate it. I think people look at Promethean in the same way as they look at Wraith and they say, how can I run this? And it's a problem because I think it's a perception issue rather than a reality issue. Promethean, the created second edition especially, has so many tools in the book to allow you to run it that really there is no excuse to not. So many playable options with it as well, so many ways to tailor your character and your experience with the game that you could be having a lot of fun with Promethean. You really can. It is not horrendously bleak after bleak after bleak. It is in fact a game with lots of highs and lows and horrors as well. Some of the horrors in Promethean are maybe the best in Chronicles of Darkness. But speaking from my experience, I know that some people will sight unseen say, Promethean, not for me. And that's a shame. But it basically prevents me from being able to put it in my top flight of Chronicles of Darkness games. Because I have met more players dogmatically refusing to engage with it than any other Chronicles of Darkness game. How about that for a sentence? Which, again, sad, but these things happen. So I will now put Hunter the Vigil on middle to upper tier. And I'm a huge fan of Hunter. Some of you might remember I did a series of recaps of Hunter the Vigil Chronicles that I ran back when I was young and stupid and using juvenile, edgy content to shock players. I hope I've grown up a little since then. But I really loved the blue-collar aspect of Hunter, paired with the conspiracy theory, deep-seated, the Chiron group, the Lucifuge, Task Force Valkyrie elements of Hunter the Vigil. I thought there's a real interesting core to Hunter that expands the Chronicles of Darkness core book amazingly well, to the degree that I know a lot of people have said Hunter the Vigil has retroactively influenced Hunter 5th edition, so to speak, for the current World of Darkness. I mean, there's so many World of Darknesses now. And I don't know. I've not read that Hunter the Reckoning. So I don't know how much of it is Vigil-like, but I wouldn't be surprised because Vigil is a fantastic game. I would take from it if I could. I can't because I've already worked on it. So our definite top flight. So these aren't really going to be surprises that Vampire the Requiem and Changeling the Lost are in there. Changeling the Lost is probably the most resounding, residual, resonant, that's the word I'm looking for, resonant Chronicles of Darkness game for a lot of people. I don't think I've played a game that has made more players cry or well up or feel some kind of emotional response than Changeling. I've had it with Promethean too, and Wraith, but Changeling the Lost explores the ideas of abduction, the idea of abuse, the idea of not belonging, the idea of replacement, the idea of disappearing and no one missing you, the idea of effectively dying and no one finding your body for years and years and years. The idea of second chances. The idea of, as the game is called, beautiful madness. And I mentioned I'm running Changing the Lost presently, and it's one of my favourite games to run because different players take different experiences from it. I feel like it's one of those games that really benefits from its source books, especially second edition. I think the source books really add to it, and so if you ever see a package come up on sale of Changing the Lost books, pick it up because those books really complement each other. Requiem as well is a game which, considering the flack it drew when it was first released, first edition, which I don't think was warranted. I think it was mostly an emotional knee-jerk response, and maybe that's diminishing your genuine grievances. I apologise, but I'll move on from it. Don't worry, I'm over it. I remember Requiem First Edition. I absolutely adored the aesthetic of that book. I loved it. The reds, the crimson, how so much line art. It just felt so distinct visually from Masquerade. I loved that. And it immediately gave me a different feeling. Despite some of the similar terminologies from Masquerade to Requiem, I immediately knew how to run Requiem differently. I knew the kind of player experience I wanted to have that was different to Masquerade. And it was sexier, it was broodier, it was blood and smoke, as the subtitle of the second edition became. And I really gelled with that in I guess that would have been my early 20s. And that has just carried on. Second edition, I think, is a tour de force of a book. It is probably the punchiest of the second edition Chronicles of Darkness core books, in the sense that it really delivers its messages point after point after point. That it is not bogged down in excessive text, which is, I guess, a design thing, but I find that Requiem gets to the point of what it can do. It gives you the tools you need to play your game and sets you off running right from the off. So Requiem second edition has to be in that top 3. Changeling maybe number 3, Requiem number 2, which leads us to number 1. And I may well have missed one in all of this excitement. Number 1, I missed Werewolf the Forsaken. Well, Werewolf the Forsaken can't be in the top 3, sadly, but I will say that Shunned by the Moon, which is the bestiary for Werewolf the Forsaken, the Night Horrors book that I developed, is one of my favourite books to have developed. The fun we had with that book, the kind of critters and monsters that we were able to put in that, including a brand new type of monster that I introduced in this book so that it could appear in the Contagion Chronicle later, which is our big crossover book for Chronicles of Darkness. The Geryon, it was just wonderful. One of my best experiences as a game writer and developer was Shunned by the Moon. And I have really enjoyed the epic stories that I have ran with Werewolf the Forsaken. It isn't all about being spiritual beat cops, as people like to classify it. It is about territory, it's about pack relationships, it is about your relationship not just with the world, but with time, with philosophy, with violence. Apocalypse explores it as well, but I feel Apocalypse explores it in a very, you might call it smash mouth, subtle as a brick kind of a way. Forsaken, I think, explores rage, animalism, and spiritualism in a way that is much more nuanced to my tastes. So Forsaken is a number 4, Changeling is number 3, Requiem is number 2, which takes us to Mummy the Curse second edition. Now, yes, of course I have bias here because I developed Mummy the Curse second edition. What's more, the very first paid assignment I had in role-playing games was writing for Sophis Ascends for Mummy the Curse first edition. So there is a through line there that I understand is going to tilt my worldview somewhat. But the main reason I love Mummy the Curse second edition is because for as much as I loved Mummy first edition, I could see how it was impenetrable to an awful lot of gamers. And what I really wanted to do with second edition was open it up and also give you new things. And I have ran several Mummy the Cursed Chronicles. I've played in Mummy the Cursed Chronicles. And what I especially delight in with Mummy is the fact that you can tell different stories every single time. You can not only with your characters and the play on memory, you wake up godlike but with very little memory of who you are. You descend, you fall into your sleep again, your eternal slumber, or semi-eternal slumber, weak but full of memories, and so the cycle continues. I love the poetry of that, but I also love the timeless aspect that we introduce in second edition, where mummies do not wake up in a chronologically linear form. They are not simply bodies housing spirits. These are creatures, entities, if you will, that exist across multiple layers, or time is a flat circle, if you prefer, for mummies. So one session might be set, or one chronicle might be set in 1944, the next one's going to be set in 1666 in the Great Fire of London, and then all of a sudden you're back in 1066, the Battle of Hastings, and then the next time you're jumping forward again to 1814, and we've got chronicles in the Mummy the Cursed Second Edition core book that are set on Mars, so in the future. So Mummy is a game which I feel has such possibility, and it allowed me to put the Immortals from World of Darkness Immortals that I teased at in Dark Eras 2, I think, in Dark Eras Companion, into Mummy the Cursed Second Edition as playable options, because I knew that we weren't ever going to get another Immortals book, but I knew that I could get them in Mummy the Cursed Second Edition as another kind of deathless or endless character. So Mummy is really important to me as a designer, but it's also a game I've had so much fun with running and playing, and the players who have played it with me always come away just so full of, well, dialogue. Some of my players are really keen on mysteries. I will introduce mysteries in games, and they will spend their times outside of the games trying to work out who is the secret mastermind behind this plot, who was the murderer, who was this person we spoke to in an alley but whose face we couldn't see, that kind of thing. They like that kind of thing. Why did this person do this? What does this mean? So I love putting mysteries in plots, and I know Mage the Awakening is a big mystery-focused game, but Mummy the Curse is a mystery at its centre. Your characters wake up knowing very little, discover the world around you, determine who is manipulating you and who is looking out for your best interests. It has a Memento feel to it, if you're familiar with that movie, where everything is basically playing from the perspective of someone who has no memory and is trying to cobble it together with various reminders. I think we really opened up second edition to allow for more instances of mummies waking up together. We opened up second edition to allow for more playable options, not just other immortals, but sorcerers. We also tied it better into the other Chronicles of Darkness game lines, which was something a lot of people were asking for. Can vampires be cultists in mummies, morettes, their cults, and so on? I think Mummy the Cursed Second Edition, from my tastes, is the best Chronicles of Darkness game. And of course I'm going to say that, because I developed the game I wanted to see. A less arrogant person would pick a game that they didn't work on. The problem is, I have, by one means or other, worked on all of these games because I was overseeing the Chronicles of Darkness for Onyx Path, and I developed the Contagion Chronicle, which contained every single one of these game lines, and co-developed Dark Eras 2, which contained every single one of these game lines. So have I ever worked on Mage the Awakening purely? No, and maybe that affects my judgment. None of this is to say any of these games are bad. None of this is to say any of these games are better than the rest. The fact is, it's my tastes, and your tastes will differ. I have no doubt that people will comment below to say Mage the Awakening is their favourite Chronicles of Darkness game, and I am very keen to see you say that. Likewise, Demon, Beast, Deviant. I've got nothing against any of these games as games. And Deviant, just for me, I think Deviant is a really great game, especially if you want to Resi Evil up your Chronicles of Darkness games. It's excellent. I just haven't had the opportunity to explore it as much as I have the others. So maybe when I do, it will move up to the middle ground, maybe even the upper flight. But as I mentioned early on, if Curseborn, if Chronicles of Darkness, if you're a big Chronicles of Darkness fan, you do need to check out Curseborn when it reaches Kickstarter, because while Onyx Path doesn't have approval to make any further Chronicles of Darkness games, we have been working on Curseborn, which is still going to allow you to play the Hungry. It's still going to allow you to play the shape-shifting primals. It's still going to allow you to play the Dead and the Outcasts, which are, they're a little bit of Changeling, a little bit of Demon. And your sorcerers, of course. And it will have lots of elements you enjoy from games we've worked on before, but more than anything else, it's a brand new game. It's an inspired game. If you love the work of Stephen King and Mike Flanagan, you are going to absolutely adore Curseborn. So I will link it below, because I keep linking it below. I want more and more people to find it. And I want to thank you so much for watching. Please do comment below with your favourite Chronicles of Darkness game.